Shadow tape number 537. Subject, Dennis Rader, BTK. A name like any other. Dennis Rader, a bland, unremarkable man on the surface. Pillar of the community, they all said. He was a Boy Scout leader and church council president, a compliance officer who patrolled mundane city ordinances. By day, he cited neighbors for unkempt lawns. By night, he dreamed of torture. Rader was a family man with a wife and 2 kids, a former Air Force sergeant who even studied criminal justice in college. Decades in Wichita, Kansas, he lived unnoticed. The friendly face of a monster, hiding in plain sight. He gave himself a name, BTK, because he binds, tortures, and kills. 10 people would fall victim to him over 3 decades before anyone ever knew his name. I skimmed the psychological profile attached. Even as a boy, Rader had a darkness in him, strangling stray animals, fantasizing about bondage and pain. The experts later called it a compulsion, a twisted urge he dubbed his Factor X. But for years, he kept the mask of normalcy firmly in place. Neighbors remember a rigid, rule-obsessed man, the kind who'd measure your grass with a ruler just to write you a ticket. No one imagined that same man creeping through bedroom windows at night, or that his friendly smile concealed a sadist's lust. Monsters often wear the skin of ordinary men. Dennis Rader wore his too well. January 15th, 1974. Winter grips Wichita. In a modest East Side home, an entire family is found strangled. 2 parents and 2 children. The scene is horrific. Chairs toppled, the phone line cut. Bodies laid out as if the killer savored the tableau. Later, investigators discover semen at the scene, though none of the victims were sexually assaulted. A calling card of the killer's arousal from power. A missing watch from the father's wrist hints that the murderer pocketed a trophy. 3 older children return home from school that day to a nightmare that will never leave them. Gotham or Wichita, the pain of loss is the same. I clench my jaw as I picture the crime scene photos. This was BTK's deadly debut, and it would not be his last. April 4th, 1974. Only a few months later, terror strikes again. A 21-year-old woman, I'll call her Catherine Bright, comes home midday with her brother, but someone is already inside. Rader lies in wait, gun in hand. He forces them to tie each other up. There's a struggle, a gunshot. The brother, wounded in the head, staggers away bleeding and survives. Catherine is not so lucky. Rader stabs her multiple times, leaving her to bleed out on the floor. By the time help arrives, she's gone. 2 attacks, 6 dead. Wichita police start whispering the word serial. Late 1974, with 2 carnage scenes behind him, the Phantom decides to speak. The Wichita Eagle newspaper receives a letter, cryptic and brimming with pride. In it, the killer claims the earlier family murders and offers a chilling identifier. The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them, BTK. A signature is born. He left that letter tucked inside a library book, like a spider leaving a web for the police to stumble into. With that, the city's boogeyman now had a name, one he chose himself. He was no longer a mere shadow. He was BTK, and he relished it. March 17th, 1977. A mother of 3, Shelley, as I'll call her, is home with her young children. Rader tricked his way in, perhaps posing as a phone repairman, and now holds the family at gunpoint. The children, ages 8, 6, and 4, are locked in a bathroom while their mother is tied up. Tape and rope. These were his weapons as much as any knife. He strangles the woman with cruel deliberation. Her little ones cry behind the door, helpless. A ringing telephone startles Rader before he can harm the kids. Spooked, he flees into the night. When the children finally break out, they find their mother's lifeless body on the bed. The only description police get is from a 5-year-old, a bad man, with no real distinguishing features. The BTK ghost slips away again. December 8th, 1977. Another cold night. This time a young woman, let's call her Nancy, comes home from her secretarial job. She doesn't know that Rader has cut her phone line and crept inside. He binds her on her own bed and strangles her with a rope. BTK then does something audacious. He finds a payphone and dials 911. In a chillingly calm voice, he reports her murder and gives the address, then hangs up. The police race to the scene, but of course the killer is long gone. All they find is Nancy's body and a city now in full-blown panic. Weeks later, in early 1978, the local TV station receives a letter from BTK. He's angry, furious that his handiwork isn't leading the news. How many people do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention? He snarls. In that ranting letter, he even suggests some nicknames for himself: the Wichita Strangler, the Asphyxiator, craving the spotlight like a wannabe devil, demanding credit. The media finally splashes his self-chosen moniker, BTK, across headlines in big print. It's twisted validation, and Rader soaks it in. I picture him hunched over a typewriter late at night, crafting these taunting letters with a smirk on his face. He wanted to be feared, and he was. April 28, 1979. BTK targets a 63-year-old grandmother, Anna, selecting her with the patient calculation of a predator. He breaks into her house and waits, and waits. But that night, fate intervenes. Anna stays out later than usual. Rader grows impatient. After hours of lurking, he abandons his plan and slinks away, denied his kill. But his ego won't let it rest. A couple months later, Anna receives a haunting package in the mail. Inside are some of her personal belongings that had gone missing, and a poem titled, "Oh Anna, why didn't you appear?" In those verses, Rader pours out his dark frustration at being deprived of murdering her. The message is clear. I was there. I waited for you. Anna realizes she narrowly escaped becoming BTK's next victim. The thought will haunt her forever. By now, Wichita police know they're up against a fiend who won't stop. In 1984, they form a special task force dedicated to BTK, grimly nicknamed the Ghostbusters, because they were chasing a specter. The FBI's best profilers, including the legendary John Douglas, are called in to help draw out this phantom. They gather every shred of evidence from the 5 known crime scenes: fibers, a partial fingerprint, semen samples, the killer's bizarre letters, and analyze them endlessly. Still, BTK remains an enigma. Years pass, and the trail goes cold. The Ghostbusters task force disbands without a ghost to show for it. April 27th, 1985. After an 8-year lull, the killer returns. Rader's own neighbor, a 53-year-old woman I'll call Marjorie, disappears from her home after a night of bingo. A week later, her body is found dumped by a rural road, strangled just like the others. The proximity is chilling. BTK literally hunted right down the street from his own family home, under everyone's noses. It's later learned that he even took Marjorie's corpse to his church and photographed her in bondage poses at the altar, defiling a sacred place to immortalize his sickness on film. But in 1985, police do not connect this murder to BTK. They still believe he may be gone. They are tragically wrong. September 16, 1986. Another suburban home, another nightmare. A young mother of 2, we'll call her Vicky, is found by her husband, strangled with a nylon stocking on their bedroom floor. Their 2-year-old child is crying beside her, unharmed physically. With BTK silent for so long, authorities don't immediately link this to him either. In fact, suspicion initially falls on the husband, furthering the tragedy as he falls under a cloud of guilt in the court of public opinion. It will be 18 more years before Rader finally sends Vicky's missing driver's license to prove he was the culprit, exonerating the grieving widower. January 19th, 1991. One last known murder. A 62-year-old retiree, Dolores, is home alone on a quiet Saturday. Rader slips in by shattering a sliding glass door with a concrete block. He binds her hands and feet and strangles her, dumping her body under a nearby bridge. This kill is especially brazen. It's in a rural area outside city limits, where Rader often prowled. By now, he's also busy with life. By 1991, he's a compliance officer and father of two, balancing Cub Scout meetings with covert murder. After Dolores' death, BTK goes silent. No more letters, no bodies turning up with his grim signature. The trail freezes. For years, Wichita sleeps a little easier, thinking the boogeyman might be gone. Perhaps he died, or was locked up for something else, they speculate. The case went cold, filed away among the unsolved. But in truth, the killer simply hibernated, like a spider waiting in a dark corner. Then, January 2004, 30 years after BTK's first strike, a local Wichita newspaper runs a retrospective story on the unsolved murders, essentially calling BTK a ghost of the past. Reading that, Dennis Rader's pride flares back to life. How dare they think he's dead or forgotten? The article is the spark. The monster awakens. In March 2004, the Wichita Eagle receives an envelope from someone calling himself Bill Thomas Killman, a thinly veiled code for BTK. Inside are photographs of Vicky's 1986 crime scene and her missing driver's license, items only the killer could have. BTK is back, and he wants the world to know. What follows is a twisted game of cat and mouse played out in letters and packages. Rader sends dozens of messages to the media and police throughout 2004, each a morbid showcase. In one package, he includes a word search puzzle with hidden clues like fantasies and his own name encoded in the grid. In another, he leaves a cereal box in a park, a dark pun on serial killer, containing a doll with its hands and feet tied, and a plastic bag over its head. Posed like one of his victims, he writes long, rambling narratives about his kills, even suggesting chapter titles for a biography of himself. The arrogance is staggering. For Rader, this is all a grand performance, BTK's return tour, and he craves an audience. Reading through these correspondences, I can't help but compare BTK to the villains I've faced in Gotham. The narcissism, the hunger for recognition. Rader's profile mirrors that of a theatrical madman. He wasn't content just to kill. He needed to brag, to play with law enforcement and the public's fear. Each letter was a stroke to his ego, each headline his twisted reward. This was a man who bound and choked the life out of strangers to feel powerful, then went to church on Sunday with a smile. The duality is nauseating. In the case file notes, an FBI profiler describes Rader as organized and meticulous. He stalked victims he viewed as vulnerable, women at home, alone, or with small children he could subdue. He planned attacks methodically, often cutting the phone line beforehand, bringing rope, tape, tools to bind. He took souvenirs like jewelry or clothing from victims to relive the moment later. In his attic or buried in a stash, he kept photos, victim IDs, and even that one ghastly poem he mailed. These trophies and writings were fuel for his dark fantasies during the long gaps between murders. What drove him? Control. Dennis Rader lusted for absolute control over life and death. He called it trolling, hunting human prey, and referred to his murders as projects, each with a code name. One investigator noted how Rader compartmentalized his life, family, work, and projects, all kept separate, the walls between maintained with cold precision. It's the kind of compartmentalization I've seen in psychopaths before. They mimic normalcy perfectly in daily life, all while harboring a secret self that hungers for violence. Yet for all his self-control, BTK had an Achilles heel: attention. He desperately wanted to be feared as the ultimate boogeyman. When the city stopped talking about him, he couldn't stand it. That vanity led him to break his own decade-long silence. In 2004, he essentially poked his head up from the shadows to wave, saying, "I'm still here." It was a reckless move for a predator that had evaded capture for so long. Hubris, the same thing that brings down so many of Gotham's costumed criminals, would also bring down Dennis Rader. Early 2005, BTK is in full correspondence with the authorities, toying with them. He doesn't know it, but the noose is tightening. In one message, Rader boldly asks the police, "If I send you a floppy disk, can you trace it?" I shake my head at the question. It's naive, almost laughable, coming from a man who had been so careful. The police, of course, reply in the newspaper with a coded ad saying, "Rex, it will be okay," effectively lying to BTK that it's safe. Rader takes the bait. In February 2005, he mails a 3.5-inch floppy disk to a local TV station for police to examine. This single disk will undo 30 years of bloody work. Forensic techs insert the floppy and find it wiped, almost. But in the shadows of the disk's data, they uncover a deleted Microsoft Word file. It's a church meeting agenda, last modified by a user named Dennis at Christ Lutheran Church. A few keystrokes in a search engine reveal that Christ Lutheran Church in Park City has a president, Dennis Rader. My eyes narrow at the simplicity of it. The hunter had just given away his own name. Decades of meticulous murders, unraveled by one careless digital trace. Detectives drive by Rader's address and notice a black Jeep Cherokee in his driveway, the same make of vehicle spotted in surveillance footage dropping one of BTK's packages weeks earlier. Now they are sure who he is. But they need hard proof. They get creative. Rader's daughter is in college and had a recent pap smear at the campus clinic. Agents obtain a sample of her DNA. When the lab compares it to semen from a 1974 BTK crime scene, it's a familial match. The odds don't lie. The DNA confirms that the killer's blood runs in the Rader family. They've got their man. February 25, 2005. After a 31-year manhunt, police arrest Dennis Rader during his lunch break, just a block from his office. They surround his vehicle and yank out the bewildered 59-year-old suburban dad who once terrorized a city. In the interrogation room, it doesn't take long for Rader to crack. Confronted with the DNA evidence, he knows the game is over. He confesses freely, even eagerly, to all 10 murders, detailing each with chilling detachment. Decades of secrets spill out in a matter-of-fact tone, as if he's proud. One detail sticks with me. Rader was genuinely shocked that the police lied to him about the floppy disk being untraceable. This man who spent his life deceiving others couldn't fathom being deceived by law enforcement. In the end, his own arrogance was his undoing. In the summer of 2005, Dennis Rader stood in court and listened to the judge sentence him to 10 consecutive life terms, one for each life he stole. There was no dramatic fight, no escape. The courtroom applauded as the book finally closed on BTK. Rader was led away in handcuffs to spend the rest of his natural life in a concrete cell, far from the streets of Wichita he once stalked. The ghost was caught. The reign of terror ended. I close the case file and exhale, realizing I had been holding my breath through the final pages. So many innocents lost, so many years of fear. 10 lives snuffed out, families shattered, because of one man's perverted desire for power. Dennis Rader's story is a cautionary tale in monstrosity. Not the comic book kind I usually face in Gotham. No flamboyant costumes or grandiose schemes, but the ordinary kind. The neighbor next door who waves hello in the morning and plans your murder by night. Those are the monsters that keep me awake at dawn, because they teach a hard truth. Evil can wear a friendly face. BTK remained uncaught for so long, not due to supernatural cleverness, but because of community trust. People couldn't imagine the church-going family man was a serial killer. In Wichita, folks left their doors unlocked, unaware the predator lived among them. Gotham has hardened to such naivety, but I fear how easily we too can overlook the devils we know. Rader reminds us that vigilance must be constant. The smallest slip, the tiniest crack in his mask, a misspelled word, a piece of metadata, was what finally revealed him. It makes me wonder, how many more like him hide in society's blind spots even now? How many smiles hide knives behind their backs? This case file will go into the Black Case Book, a reminder that justice can prevail even after decades. The wheels of justice may turn slowly, but they do turn. Rader once felt invincible, laughing at the police in his letters. Yet in the end, a few kilobytes on a floppy disk brought the mighty BTK to his knees. No matter how clever criminals think they are, there's a reckoning waiting for them in the shadows they left behind. As I see his prison ID photo clipped to the last page, a balding, unremarkable face, I feel no triumph, only a somber satisfaction. The monster is caged. The city and the nation can sleep a little easier. But I won't forget the lesson of Dennis Rader. The darkness he carried is the same darkness I stalk in Gotham's alleys each night. It's the darkness of human evil, banal and horrific all at once. And whether it's Wichita, Gotham, or anywhere else, we must never assume the monster is gone for good. Eternal vigilance is the price of safety. Stay vigilant. Follow for more stories from the Shadow Tapes.